the working classes. That is something which is given in Marxist theory. But I would add, I would add little, how it happens. Primarily, if you look at the whole Marxist theory, then in their understanding, capitalism was a mode of development where the two contradictory classes would exist, and one would be the capitalist class, and another would be the working classes. So that is one, that why bourgeoisie would be in contradiction with the workers. So the inherent contradiction, because bourgeoisie they represent the classes of haves, and the workers, they would represent the classes of have-nots, right? But at the same time, bourgeoisie would also be caught in contradiction with the feudal lords, primarily because that the base of power, or the center of power, would be shifting from the feudal lords to the bourgeoisie, or to the emerging capitalist classes. So that is how with the changing mode of production, the center of power would shift. Now the feudal lords, which were the dominant class during the feudal mode of production, would no more remain the dominant class under the capitalist mode of development. Since it was a phase of transition in which feudalism and capitalism would coexist side by side. So this is how it would be understood that the capitalist class, or the bourgeoisie, or emerging bourgeoisie rather, it would also be in contradiction with the feudal lords. Now there are varied interpretations. There are kind of explanations that many would also consider that eventually, if we say bourgeoisie, then we mean all those classes who had some control over different means of production. So in this way, even the feudal lords could be considered to be part of bourgeoisie, right? So they can also be part of bourgeois class. But they are open to interpretations and explanations. But in this specific case, what possibly M.N. Rao was emphasizing upon, that this was a case wherein, under the phase of transition, possibly the working classes could take advantage of the existing instability. So that's possibly that possibly he wanted to highlight. Again, if you look the way capitalism has grown in a country like India, or maybe even in Germany, and that is where possibly you will find that there are gaps and limitations in Marxism that that it is, in my opinion, is not in a position to explain the mode of development in a country like India. Because if you see in a country like India, for instance, or in a country like Germany, for instance, so what one finds that the erstwhile feudal class, it transforms itself into capitalist class, right? So that is something which also happens. But as far as the dual contradiction is concerned, this is how M.N. Rao would understand that there were kind of a dual contradiction as far as the position of the bourgeois class vis-a-vis the feudal lords and the workers, that was concerned, right? Okay. So that is one, right? That is one. So Preeti, is it clear what late capitalism means and how it is related to the whole concept of? Okay, right. Okay. So again, that's something which makes us to move towards the next aspect in M.N. Rao's. Please tell me. Okay, see what M.N. Rao could understand, that eventually the idea was to capture power. If one tries to understand the whole objective of the proletariat revolution, right? So this is how we understood that it would be a time of instability, and in this time of instability, perhaps the classes, it doesn't matter, whether they belong to Britain or they belong to India. Primarily, it was the contradictory relationship between one class and another. So what he understands that if national movement under the bourgeois leadership would be allowed to succeed, then that would mean that again the capitalist class would have control over the state power, right? So this is what he in his understanding or in his explanation, should not be allowed to happen, and this stage should be skipped rather than allowing the leadership of the time, which he considers that were drawn primarily from the bourgeois class, primarily from the emerging bourgeois class. The state power could be captured. The state power could be captured straightway by the workers during the national movement itself, because he understands that, as far as the numbers were concerned, right? So once the working classes, they come in association with peasants, for instance, tenants, for instance, right, landless workers, for instance, so this would be a very sizable number, and using them, possibly one can lead a proletariat movement to capture the state power. So this is what he means when he says that the workers could take advantage, and eventually the state power could be captured. And that's what possibly that's what possibly happens in 1949. Much later, when Roy was developing his idea in China. Of course, China was not a capitalist country, right? It was primarily an agrarian society when in 1949 revolution was led by Mao in China. So that possibly could be connected, and that's how we can understand that what he means when he says that the working classes possibly could take advantage of the contradiction, because contradiction would mean greater instability of the position of the dominant class, right? And once the dominant class is unstable, then it is rather easier to topple them and capture the state power. So this is more linked to the kind of strategy possibly the proletariats could adopt in terms of capturing the state power. Okay, right. So this is what leads us to the next issue that we intend discussing today. Gandhian approach and how Emin Roy looks at the whole Gandhian approach in a critical manner, right? Some of the points I have sent you across, and that might have given you some idea that why Emin Roy would understand that eventually the movement that was led by a person like Gandhi would mean protecting the interest of the dominant class in his understanding. Now, as I told you that this was possibly the typical Marxist position that one may try to identify in Emin Roy's approach. But let me also add that there was a lot of influence of Gandhi on Emin Roy, and that comes rather clearly when he is trying to develop his idea of radical democratic state, or new democracy, what he calls as new democracy. And of course, not only in a Gandhian principles, but also one would find that there would also be some kind of influence of Rousseau's general will, right? Rousseau's general will, because the way he understands that there should be a small communities, right? People's communities, which should be replica of states, and the communities like this would come together to form, what would be the state, right? Now that's something I would come to, but according to Emin Roy, the whole Gandhian approach primarily would mean that the interest of the dominant class, the point I made earlier, that's what was being protected, and it was primarily that objective that had made Gandhi to prevent anything from being transformed into a full-blown revolution, full-fledged revolution. Now, when Emin Roy looks at the whole non-cooperation movement, and of course, Gandhi had successfully transformed the national movement into a mass movement, and Emin Roy had all the appreciation for Gandhi for his contribution this way, because he understood that no leader earlier had made this possible, that as far as the national movement was concerned, or as far as Congress was concerned, right? So Congress had not become a mass party, or the whole movement had not become a mass movement under the earlier leadership, which could be possible only under Gandhi. So that is something, that is something he would recognize as far as Gandhi's contribution to national movement was concerned. But at the same time, he would be very much skeptical as far as Gandhian approach was concerned, and that's where he brings in the argument that the whole decision of Gandhi to recall or to stop the non-cooperation movement was done with a motive to prevent it from being transformed into a revolution. And he understood that, had Gandhi not done that, there might possibly have been revolution in India at that point of time, because masses had been mobilized, masses they had become aware that there was an unjust rule in India which was to be thrown away, and they were participating in large numbers. So that is where revolution might possibly could have happened, and India might have become free from the clutches of the British rule. And he understands that the whole argument of Gandhi, that the movement had turned violent, and a violent movement could not be controlled and directed. So that was simply an argument in M.N. Roy's understanding to serve the interest of the dominant class, to serve the interest of the bourgeois class. And in this specific instance, Roy refers to class as a whole. So certainly he is not distinguishing between nationalities and nations, but he understands that it was primarily to serve the interest of the bourgeois class. So be it the British, the British rulers at that point of time, it did represent the class of bourgeoisie, in his understanding. So that is how he would look at the whole approach of Gandhi. So two things come very clearly in his critique as far as Gandhian method was concerned, or the role of Congress was concerned. The Congress was understood to be a bourgeois party in his understanding, which primarily worked to serve the interest of the dominant class, of the bourgeois class. That is one. And second, the whole movement was controlled by Gandhi in such a manner that he could prevent any successful revolution from happening. Right? So that is something which he argues against Gandhi and Gandhian methods, and the role of the